How to avoid a civil lawsuit during publication. One of the great things about learning this lesson is that it has so many applications. The tips that you learn here will be applicable no matter what medium you're using, whether it be for a print story in a newspaper or a magazine, a news segment on the radio, breaking news on a television station, or a blog post for your social media account. You'll need to look out for these rules. When recording, filming, or photographing someone, you have to follow laws that are in place. Where you film someone and how you do so are just two of the major things you need to look out for. When you're about to begin filming, it's important to remember that courts have ruled that people have a reasonable expectation of privacy. However, there are 3 exceptions to this rule. 1. If it is a matter of public record. 2. If it was previously disclosed by another source. 3. If the incident took place in a public place with no expectation of privacy, then you should be okay. If you are filming in a home, it is likely a no-go. This is because a home is almost always ruled in a court as being private. This means that you can't intrude upon any activities occurring on private property during most circumstances. This intrusion includes both physical and technological trespassing, so both physically entering a person's property or doing so with the aid of technology such as the flying of a drone would count towards this intrusion. When dealing with a person's home, it is safe just to get a written consent. Under special circumstances, however, a defense of intrusion known as implied consent is issued. This protects recording and photography of persons involved in newsworthy events. This is how news outlets can sometimes get around these events. However, some jurisdictions have ruled that consent can be withdrawn prior to publication. This creates both legal and ethical issues that you don't really want to get involved with. This is why the best and safest practice is to always receive a subject consent before conducting any type of recording. Remember, if they say no at first, you can always try again and hope they change their mind. When filming in public spaces, on the other hand, you are almost always safe to photograph or film to your heart's content. This is because, as mentioned before, if the public can view or hear, you can also view or hear. This means that there is no expectation of privacy in a public area. This would include places such as parks, city streets, parking lots, national monuments, and others. So consent in these places doesn't hurt, but it isn't required. Businesses, on the other hand, are very tricky to deal with for consent laws, as they can be safe to film and enforce in certain situations and the exact opposite for others. You have no right to be on a private property if the owner does not approve. This is why police officers need a warrant in order to conduct certain investigations. You wouldn't need consent to photograph in places such as zoos and stadiums and restaurants, as seen with various fan cams and security cameras, but you would need consent to do so in businesses such as a hospital or a dentist's office. Now, we all have been tempted to record a funny phone conversation to share with others. Although this may seem like a good idea at first, without getting consent of the person on the other end, this little joke could have a serious legal repercussion.
What are you wearing, Jake from State Farm?
Khakis?
She sounds hideous.
Well, she's a guy, so...
In Indiana, law requires the consent of only one party involved, when both are calling from the same state. However, if you are filming in other states such as California, it is illegal to record without the consent of both parties. Interstate calls, on the other hand, are governed by the federal law. One such federal law, governed by the FCC, prohibits the use of a live or recorded conversation going on the air without a person's consent, regardless of which state you live in. Run-ins with these laws happen more often than you might think. You might remember back in 2016 when Taylor, Kanye, and Kim had a debacle over such an issue. Since Kanye lived in California and since he made the call, both are required to give consent. Thus, lawyers swooped in to prove Taylor suspected or knew that the call was being recorded, and that the West didn't violate the Wiretap Act from publishing the call.
I think it would be great for me to be like, look, she called me and told me the line before it came out. Like, joke's on you guys, we're fine.
A more recent example has been playing out in the news with different circumstances, this one between controversial conspiracy theorist Adam Jones and NBC's Megyn Kelly. Now that you know how to lawfully publish content, you should be able to avoid a civil lawsuit next time you are out filming. Yes, it is, Brick. Yes, it is.